this tariff idea is actually there has been these great trade theories for many years, as you
Mm-hmm.
also will be aware. So this
Right.
is like an old trade theory of mercantilist theory kind of thing we used to call it, where
Right.
everybody thought that whenever I am exporting something, I'll give them all the benefits, all the reductions and support from the government. And wherever
Right.
I'll import, I'll put as many possible barriers, both tariff
Mm-hmm.
and non-tariff barriers. I'll put up as much as I can. So
Right.
then anyway, it will be a good thing for me because I'm stopping most of the imports and regulating the imports very strongly. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm encouraging all the exports and pushing for exports. So
Right.
that seemed to be a model which seemed appealing to many people. Or let's say during the East India Company and all that, when they were there, they took that
Right.
as a model. And for a while in the 19th century, that was the model which was there. But then they
Right.
realized that when each of the countries try to do that, the net effect is their overall profits and overall trade is getting affected. And actually,
Right.
there is mathematical models around it as well. That if
Mm-hmm.
both the countries try to do everything on their own,
Right.
outside what they have a specialized skill on, they actually are going to be inefficient. And the net result of will be that they can produce less, they can do less GDP additions. Every country's goal is to maximize their GDP. Let's agree. Like for instance, for companies, we'll say profit maximization is one of the overall goal. Now, of course, we have sustainability and
Right.
the a triple bottom line. All those things have come in later. But
Right.
initially, the simple one which appeals to everybody is maximizing shareholder value and maximizing profits. So the
Mm.
same thing, if you take to a country, the country's interest would be to have the maximum GDP, and obviously that leading to maximum per capita income and so on. So
Right.
when you want to maximize your GDP, and if you
Mm.
take this approach of
Mm.
a mercantilist model is what it was, if I remember right, from the lessons in international business, which I was teaching in my previous institute, then
Right.
what happens is that both the countries actually don't reach the maximum GDP. Let's say country A, B, and C are all three going in for this approach, that they
Right.
will try to optimize their exports, subsidize
Mm-hmm.
it, and encourage it, and
Mm.
look down upon all imports and put all possible trade barriers and non-tariff trade barriers. If all the
Mm-hmm.
players take that stand, the total GDP of these countries together will not be
Mm-hmm.
optimized. Whereas
Okay.
if they are cooperating on trade, the sum of the GDPs would be higher. Let's say to make the mathematics simple, you can have three country, four country model. So with the
Right.
let's say it's a three or four country model, the four country model will have a higher sum GDP, and which in turn will mean that each country also is doing better in GDP by not putting up trade barriers and being more cooperative on trade. So,
Mm-hmm.
so perhaps initially it was somewhat counterintuitive that why that is happening. So there it goes on to explain. There's a whole theory and maths around it, which shows that if everybody does what they are better at, you can
Mm-hmm.
actually get more out of it. Like for instance,
Right.
naturally, we let's say we are naturally got some natural strength. Let's say in India we have a lot of labor force,
Right.
and we have good English education and good STEM education and so on. So, given
Mm-hmm.
our strength in English education, STEM education, and the availability of large number of resources, large number of engineering colleges,
Mm-hmm.
doing things like IT services, business management services, engineering services from India is
Mm-hmm.
always going to add value, not just to India, but to the other country as well. Because with the
Mm-hmm.
same amount of money, they are able to get more R&D done, more engineering design done, or more code written. All of that would
Mm-hmm.
also benefit. It's not that that's just benefiting India. It is benefiting that external company and the country which is giving this work to India. If that were not the case, then the IT industry would not have grown the way it did. And right now, there are so many other things over IT. It is the all these global capability centers, the business process management,
Right.
engineering, R&D. All of that is getting outsourced because they are able to get more done with less amount of money, and naturally, that is benefiting the maybe even the country giving out the work is in fact benefiting even more than
Mm.
the benefit that is coming to India because of getting these export dollars and employment opportunity. Obviously, it's helping India as well. But the benefit I would say is actually even more for the importing country. So that is the reason it was growing and is actually a win-win situation, which Trump has kind of reversed the clock, if you ask me. If from your management theory, if I say it's quite silly, he's not applied the laws of economics, and I don't think any economist is kind of supporting his move of putting on these huge 100, 200% barriers. So that was my initial thought. Let not this be here. Let me not make it like a lecture. I would like to hear your thoughts also.
It's the right thing what you did. There's a different wave which has happened in US tariff. Like countries like China, especially, and Europe. It definitely had some impact. And this is going to shift the trade from different nations, or how is it going to? What is your thought on that? Is it going to?
Yes, it's going to sort of disrupt the current trading system, which means that there were certain countries which have really got specialized on certain things. So that is going to. So the loser to me looks like large extent is going to be China, because China in the current mode had the lion's share of almost everything, right? I mean, right now there's some battery company coming up with this. Today I saw a report saying that they're going to have this new kind of EV battery which will charge in 5 minutes to 80% and things like that.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
And then they said this particular company, I will forget his name, has 70% of the world market, or was it 30? I think 30% of the world market, something like that, or even more. I don't remember the exact number, but a huge market share is there with China for many products. So by this trade war, obviously that's going to get disrupted, and other countries like India will get some of that work, right? Because with the trade barriers, they will not be able to export as much, and it will get more democratized. More countries will be able to get into this exports to US now, right? Like for instance, India, could be Vietnam. Of course, a lot of tariffs have been put on Vietnam as well, but certain other parts, other countries could benefit, because earlier it was almost like a monopoly with China, because China had in a very planned manner done this thing that our interest is to export, and our own consumer market is not big enough, or there is more benefit of faster growth if we export more. So that thought they've had, and that thought they had since 1990 or something, right? So many years ago they decided to make export their main focus. And so they have built in a lot of competencies and economies of scale. Giga factories, huge factories have been built. And so because of the economies of scale and specialization, they have built some very, very strong competencies, which now it's extremely difficult for other countries to break through. So I think even US is not going to get a clear benefit out of China. That's why China did not blink, right? If you see that. When Trump was going on increasing the tariff, all other countries were trying to reconcile or do something, but China took them on head on. Because China knew that there is no way US can do without them. Like suppose we even want to make something within their country, all the components, raw materials again have to come from China. So there was no avoiding China. And if you put a huge duty, then their end products would also be uncompetitive, right?
Correct. So that is what's going to happen now. So end product is going to be competitive, and then again, it's going to take a different wave altogether. And they are going to manufacture, as you said, they have planned the manufacturing units for exports, and they don't have the local market for whatever they're manufacturing.
Right.
So either they have to push it to the US, or they'll have to give it to the other countries. Probably they may look at other countries also coming in and getting the products imported to them.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. They're already doing that. They're trying to, US, I think Jinping Singh was traveling to the Southeast Asian countries and trying to see if they can pick up more of their products, and obviously they will try to push it to India as well. And that's the worry for us as well, because there could be dumping, because they already got these huge factories, and if they can't export to the US, then at a discounted price they would flood the other markets. And then our local manufacturing could get affected. So that's actually a worry that we have, and we have to put some, some kind of a additional trade tariff for that period, an anti-dumping duty or whatever is the relevant WTO prescribed thing, we have to do that to protect our markets because they could be otherwise flooding goods at a very low rate into India because they're not able to export to the US. So that's one danger we have. While on the
Right.
other hand, it's an opportunity as well because let's say something like mobile phone manufacturing, where already we have built up a good base as well because of the
Right.
earlier ships with Apple and Foxconn, the Taiwanese companies setting up their assembly
Right.
and manufacturing units here. So that being the
Mm-hmm.
case, they are already got a good base in mobile, and now with the tariffs hitting China, I think mobile manufacturing will primarily move to India. Maybe at some time we will be exporting, making more than 50% of the mobiles worldwide will be made in India, like it's happening in China at the moment.
Right.
That could really move here. So obviously, in those areas where we have the capability, we
Mm.
will be able to take advantage of this tariff war, and we could be a beneficiary. While at the same time, there's a risk as well because there could be dumping of goods from China because they are pushed to the wall against US.
Right.
So that is one of the things I think which is likely to happen.
Right. And what about the WTO, sir, or international trade bodies? How they are trying to resolve this tariff disputes today? Are they losing their relevance or something like that?
You're right. I mean, they don't seem to be losing the relevance. I mean, that's the right thing, but they're not made any word because the US being the biggest, contributor and influencer in the WTO, this kind
Mm.
of unilateral tariff should not be allowed. I mean, that was the reason why we had all the agreement on lower trade because before WTO it was the GATT, right? Generally agreed trade and tariff barriers, the GATT treaty and all during
Mm.
Mr. Pranab Mukherjee's time from us, and we were, discussing all of those things, how to be a member of GATT. So the GATT treaties happened, and we all agreed to keep tariffs at a lower rate and
Right.
benefit from this multilateral trading organization, which is WTO. But now US is unilaterally increasing the tariff so much, and
Mm.
we haven't heard any particular stand from WTO, right? I mean, at least I don't recollect in public domain WTO saying we have condemned US's method and this is not sustainable. We will throw them out of WTO. I have not heard such
Exactly.
statement.
Exactly. Right.
Hmm. So, if it was any other country, I'm sure you would have had, like suppose India tried to do this or Japan tried to do this or some other smaller economy. I'm sure they
Mm.
would have been shouting murder that how can Japan do this or how can
Exactly.
India do this or France do this for that matter.
Right. Right.
Huh.
So
But
the
being, right.
yeah, being the US as a big player, everybody is keeping silent, and they wanted to
Right,
wait
right.
and watch the situation, how things going to turn.
Yes, which is very unfortunate because the trade rules should be the same no matter how big or small the country is. So that's
Right.
typically the WTO is kind of failing and its
Mm-hmm.
relevance is largely diminished by doing these things, right? I mean, not reacting to this tariff kind of behavior. And of course,
Right.
that is driven by somewhat mistaken notion of Trump that through this he'll make that MAGA thing, no, make America great again and so on.
Great again. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's going to be very difficult when the whole supply chain, the whole capability has been lost.
Correct.
Just because there are trade barriers, they can't suddenly start making all kinds of products which they've
Exactly.
gone out
Exactly.
of.
Unless and until they have probably prepared their manufacturing setup to such an extent that they can sustain on their own.
Correct. Because you can't set up factories overnight, not like some
Overnight.
service
Correct.
or something.
Or
But
if they have planned much earlier, probably a year or two ago. But he came just recently, and how can he suddenly set up overnight factories? It's difficult.
exactly. So there is no alternative to them. I think that too. He has to import because he can't start making these all these items himself. And there is also another issue that in the place where US was strong, despite I mean they are no longer in steel. Like if you look at any other measures, just to get a worldview, if you take something like steel production, so US is like China is way above everybody else. But the second country is India, not US. So if you take steel production, if you take something like even car manufacturing everywhere now, China is the leading manufacturer and the leading market as well. right? It's no longer the US thing. Or you take something like a cement manufacturing. Again, China is number one by far, and then India is number two.
Right.
So, because actually by purchasing power parity, we are number three in the world.
Right.
That's what matters. Because of the our exchange rate being low, we are still fifth, or our economy looks like just a 4 trillion plus economy. But if you go
Right.
by purchasing power parity, we are over 10 trillion already. And China is the
wow.
number one economy already. US is second, and India is third. And India is almost twice that of Japan.
Right. Right.
So these are going to be the three biggest economies, and they are already there. It's just because of the rupee being weak that we did not have that recognition. But you take any parameter, you'd find India to be in the top three. Or you take electricity generation, US is number one, China is second, India is
India.
third. So like that, all the parameters, if you take, you will find that, I'm sorry, in the electricity generation, actually China is number one, US is second, India is third. It's in oil consumption, China, India, US is still ahead because of the, they use a lot of oil for heating and
Lot of
all the
oil.
other.
Yes.
So in oil
It's con-
consumption, it is still US one, China second, India third.
Right.
So that being the case, it's not that it's going to be that easy for them to pivot to the areas. And what I was coming to was the risks to the US products are there in other areas where US actually had a competitive or still have a competitive advantage. That's in all the IT and other related areas. Now, if you take something like a Google or a Microsoft, they have a monopoly across the world, right? So now these
Correct.
countries like Europe and all are now going to push back on that. They said, no, we will, since you are putting so many barriers on us, we don't want Google. We can make our own, from browsers to meeting places and everything else, we can do on our
Everybody is
own. Or why should we use
capable of
Microsoft?
doing their own now. Correct.
Yes, yes, yes. So that will be a huge loss for the US because they're making a lot of money, and these companies are, almost obscenely valued, right? If you look at all the FANG stocks, the Facebook, Amazon, the Netflix, and all that got very, very high valuation. So if we
Right.
continue this way, most countries will say, why do we have to watch Netflix? We can make our own. I mean, it's not too difficult to replicate on Netflix. Your collection of videos or movies may not be as much, but to make a
Right.
platform like Netflix is not so difficult, right? So countries
Yeah.
like India, countries, China, of course, already has their own platform, and
Mm.
Europe will also start pushing back. So all
Right.
these other areas where US had the soft power and the IT strength which they were leveraging, that's going to be a huge setback for US. So they could actually be there could be a huge pushback to the US on this.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know how or what is the thinking on that, and I think he just wanted to make a big noise is what
He
I
wants
feel
to
and bring
probably
it.
make his presence felt
Yes,
across the world and shake a little, and then again he wants to probably come back and say, "Okay, supply
yes,
back."
yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
he has put on.
Then he'll get into a negotiation. Like with India, they're already talking about a trade negotiation, and a lot of trade surpluses which India can offset against the US. Right? I think his main concern is with the trade surplus, and
Right.
actually India can reroute. Because suppose India is buying oil, they can buy oil from US as well. And India
Right.
will anyway need oil because there's a short, almost
Shortage.
80% of the oil we import. So instead of importing from Venezuela or Russia or Saudi Arabia, we can buy from US to balance the trade. After all, US is at least accepting a lot of our exports of,
Correct.
IT services and, hey, so why buy from Saudi Arabia or Venezuela? You might as well buy from the US. So
Correct.
it's also a good idea. And they've come up with another very interesting one, which I don't understand the full implication. I haven't given it full thought. Is they're also saying we'll buy gold from the US. So that's a very
Right.
interesting one. For a trade surplus, we will be buying, but eventually we are getting gold, which is strengthens our reserves and surpluses. So one
Right.
of the things that India is thinking that since US produces a lot of gold and India
Right.
does not, so we could actually import gold. So that way, from a trade point of view, it will look like we are balancing the trade, but actually we are getting something valuable commodity out of it, which is gold, which adds to our reserves and all that. So I think
Definitely.
they're trying to do some clever things to balance the trade and so on. So that should be happening. And the other, of course, concern is that India is protecting certain segments because they feel the dairy and other sections are vulnerable. So they don't want to import agri products. I think that is where there is a difference with the US. US wants to export a lot of agri products and all that,
Right,
and
right,
we are against that to protect the farmer community and the related poultry and other kind of dairy and other such areas.
right, right.
So that is one which could be a bit of a challenge when we wanted to get into a trade pact with the US.
Right. So, will there be any policy adjustments or the company will do or the government should consider to safeguard the trade wars?
I think the only thing they can do is get into a pact to make sure that huge tariffs don't hit us, because you're doing like what is happening is, for instance, in Europe they're saying zero. Like the
Mm-hmm.
particular set of items, let's say electronic items, we will charge zero duty, and US will charge zero duty, and they can do the trade in certain select areas. So
Mm-hmm.
even India could be considering to offer that to the US, because normally naturally our cost structure is lower, our exchange rate is also low. So zero for zero will not be such a bad thing in certain areas. So that could be one policy, that we agree on some product lines and have zero duty on both sides, and that will actually encourage free trade, and that is something they can consider. Right, so that
Mm-hmm.
is one, but there are a lot of non-tariff things which also queers the pitch for us, right? So India is not able to, for instance, export a lot of agricultural products or shrimps and other things, because they will say some small bacterial thing is there or some other
Yes.
thing is
Yes.
there, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
meeting the phytosanitary standards of that country, or the
Correct.
telecom standards of that country if you're sending electronics items. And so those
Mm-hmm.
kind of lot of non-tariff barriers are put up by a lot of countries. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe people like India should say that, okay, we'd go for a free trade kind of thing, but then you guys lower these non-trade barriers,
Correct.
and I guess they will expect us to do the same.
Mm.
And generally we would be able to, but there are certain other practices which is not right, and we can't accept some products. That might be of interest. A little, small thing in India is that they have this whole. You have heard of the mad cow disease, right? Which was a big problem for
Yes.
some
Yes.
time. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, the US is too industrialized. So they try to recycle. Like in other products, you put the byproduct, you put it back to it. So you cycle the things to get the higher productivity. Like you get output, so which is fine for all normal manufacturing. Like if you are producing, let's say, cement, and you're getting or you're running furnace and you're getting fly ash, you can use it for the construction of the plant, etc. So those
Mm-hmm.
kind of cycles are there, and it's well established in industrial. But if when you do it for food products, it's a little disturbing, right? So what I understand is for the cows and all, when they die, they're again recycling that some of it, and it's becoming feed to the cows again.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So
Yeah, that's
that is something which I think, now with the BJP and with a more indigenous and, to be frankly, a little bit of a Hindu view of things, we are really upset with that. That how can cow be eating cow remnants and again get the milk you want to export to us? So that's
correct.
not acceptable to us from a social and somewhat religious point of view. Also, we cannot accept milk exports from the US, because the cows have not been fed grains. They have been fed in a way the cyclic products from non-veg and
Cyclic
all that
products,
to them.
recycling products. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very disturbing, and that's why I think it was the mad cow disease was also origin was there from that, because obviously cow is a vegetarian animal, right? I mean, and you
Exactly.
start eating. So those
Exactly.
crazy practices are also there, unfortunately, which does
Right.
affect trade.
Mm-hmm. What about sectors like automotive, or textiles or
Okay,
electronics
so
for that matter?
yes. I think let's go one by. Let's look at textiles. Textiles,
Mm-hmm.
definitely we have an advantage, because textiles, we have capability. We manufacture a lot of textile, and we have a lot of, especially ready-made garments. We have a lot of capability in that, and it's a labor-intensive activity. So we were competing with China, Bangladesh, and maybe Vietnam. These are the other major exporters. I think China
Right.
being the largest, then Bangladesh, and we were, I think, third or fourth in the garment exports and so on. So in that area, we clearly will have an advantage with China getting this tariff push, and Bangladesh also has been slapped with a lot of tariffs. And of course, Bangladesh is having its own. After the UNIS government has come, there is a complete shakedown naturally, and they are because the garment factories are mostly run by women, and if it's an Islamist government which is going to keep getting more and more Islamist policies, then I don't think they're going to be encouraging a lot of women to be working.
Correct.
So that is there, and he's also put some barriers. There were a lot of the cotton and everything was coming, yarn and all was coming from India, so that they have blocked. So I think they are going to be, and the transshipment has also been blocked, as you must be aware that they're not allowing Bangladesh goods to be exported through India, because I believe the export costs are much lesser when they use Indian airports and Indian seaports. So because their seaports are not very efficient, the airports are not so big. So I think Bangladesh is going to have quite a bit of a negative impact on the textile, and we're already seeing a lot of uptick on the textile exports. I think it's gone up by year to year, some 25%, if I remember right. It's something in that range. Textile, clearly, we're already getting a benefit. Mobiles, we just talked a little while back, and we are getting a benefit. And similarly, it could be other electronics manufacturing. I'm already hearing about a lot of laptop manufacturing and PC manufacturing moving to India, because both the effects on China as well as the high tariff on Vietnam, they're thinking of moving some of those manufacturing operations into India. So I think we'll definitely have a benefit in both textiles as well as in most of the electronics area. And also government has given some benefits as well, like the PLI scheme, right? The production linked incentives, which is basically you produce above a certain quantity and the government is going to give you incentives in terms of not giving you money, but lowering of duties and charges that the government is putting on the manufacturing unit will be lowered. So in a way, that's a positive kind of an input into those companies. And so that being the case, a lot of electronics manufacturing is already picking up, and now with this trade activity, it should get a further fillip, right? That should happen. Which is the third one you mentioned? Textile, electronics, something else you...
Automobile.
Yeah, automobile might be a little more complex because all said and done, we are not that got that much of great technology automobile companies. I mean, we have the Tata Motors and the Mahindra, which is a homegrown. But whether their technology is really up to, let's say now, Mahindra is doing these electric cars and they are supposed to be very good, especially the new series and all. But whether we are really competitive in features and pricing compared to, say, BYD, which is the leading world's number one. BYD is the world's largest, EV manufacturer. And also Tesla obviously has, on the premium segment, Tesla has a huge mind share and capability as well. So can we really break into that and start exporting EVs to US and other developed countries? It will take a while, I think, for us to create a good brand and to be able to do that. Because, the automobiles is a more, just thinking plain economics and management, automobile is a more branded product, right? Now, when you're buying a PC or a laptop, as long as you had a standard name, you don't really bother where it's made. It's a HP laptop or a Lenovo or any one of those standard or Dell or whatever, you just go with that. You don't see whether it's Dell manufactured in China or Vietnam or India or Malaysia. You don't much care. Right? And there are standard brands, and the products are pretty commoditized in a way, because a laptop is a laptop is a laptop. Not so much of a difference. But a car is something much more people want to say that I have this car. It's something to do with the person's personality, and he wants to express himself having a good luxury car and so on. So for a car, the brand will be an issue. But what might happen is, with the same logic, some of the car manufacturing may come here. Let's say Tesla itself can manufacture here, for instance, as an example. Whether they will or not is a different matter, but theoretically Tesla could be manufacturing their cars at a lower cost in India, just like Apple is making its phones, right? So similarly, a GM could do that, or Toyota could do that, or Volkswagen could do that, right? I mean, that would work. But an Indian brand really storming the developed world, I think we are still not there. That's what I feel.
But what about the human transfer? But now the manpower will get moved from one place to other place, or is it that the transfer of human beings from one location, because this trade war is happening currently, and because of which there is a possibility that the supply chain will get disturbed globally.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that is another big impact. And there also he has specifically taken measures because this other thing, other than the trade balance and trying to make America better, he thinks that people coming from other countries are taking away US jobs. That's a clear thought process, and it was a part of his campaign as well. So he definitely doesn't want a lot of foreigners coming and working in the US, whether it's from India or Europe or any other part of the world, or Mexicans in particular. He doesn't want, I think. So anyway, so he doesn't want these foreigners to come and take US jobs. So he's going to put in a lot of barriers, and that's going to affect some of our sectors, like the IT sector and the all the business process management and knowledge KPO and all these other things do require people-to-people contact and people to spend time in another country to do the transition of work and to do the knowledge transfer for moving work. So if they're not going to get visas easily and they're going to be stopped from working for a long period in those countries, it will definitely have an impact. And so there's a negative impact on the IT sector for sure. So I think the IT stocks are a little down and they're really worried about how this will impact them. Because though it has come down with all these tools, just like we are having this call, we have so many virtual tools to work together and so on. Compared to the past, now it's much, much better. But at the same time, a certain amount of people-to-people direct contact is definitely required. And,
moving talents across country boundaries and human migration is very, very important. Without which it's very difficult to handle the current scenario with the growing technology and innovation what we have right now, like AI automation. Will this AI automation reduce dependency on the global supply chain, and probably the tariff can be worked out, something like that?
Yeah, some of the routine works were also being sent to India, right? I mean, some of the routine activities are also getting, like one example is a very clear one where we had this thing now not so popular now with AI already being in place, was the medical transcription business. I think you have also been in the industry for a while, you know that. So that was a big business at one time where the US doctors were looking at patients and they didn't have time to really write down all the prescription and all the details. So they would really just dictate it to those days a dictaphone or a small machine in which you could dictate the notes. And those notes would then get digitized and sent back to India. And this would happen during the daytime in the US, so which was night in India. So at the evening of the doctor's day, they would get sent to an Indian medical transcription center. And that center would now get all these voice recordings pertaining to let's say 50 patents that day. So there are 50 small voice recordings which are there. And they would kind of listen to it and have some basic knowledge of medical terms and some medical coding, because a lot of the payments are based on codes for the insurance companies. So they would be trained on those medical words and the medical encoding. And these people would then, sort of transcribe these voice recordings into prescriptions or notes for the doctor, right? So that is obviously a very clear area where AI can immediately take over, because AI can understand with the large language model, understand the language, and they can transcribe it. And if there's some coding to be done, that also can be taught to the AI. So I would think that part of the business is totally gone, and now they would use the AI engine to get that notes done, right? So like that, certain routine work which was coming to India would definitely get affected, right? Or the brute coding work also would come down, because a lot of the AI is going to cut the code. So it becomes more like how you design the software, how you plan the software, rather than the actual coding work. So a lot of the work was more lower end coding. So those will increasingly get more automated through AI. It's already happening. So again, that would reduce this dependency and also the need for people to travel. As you mentioned, there is a connection between the two, so that that movement of people would also get requirement for that would reduce. But as an overall deal, obviously people have to go and work abroad, and people migration is very important. So that is having a negative effect with respect to the US. But I feel
Right.
that it is getting rechanneled elsewhere. Germany, for instance, is looking for a lot of Indian people, and they are
Correct.
at the moment, I believe, fairly liberal. And you guys are connected with Europe, so you may be closer to this. But
Right.
Germany
Right.
is definitely accepting a lot of Indian talent. I think France is doing that too, and
Yes.
similarly, I'm sure other places like Australia or other countries would
Mm-hmm.
also be accepting talent from India, because they have a problem of an aging population. That won't
Correct.
get solved by barriers or by anything else, right? Because the entire growth of population has slowed down. There's mostly elderly people there. And
Right.
so definitely they need some people to come there to support it, right? Because they're having a real lack of young people, skilled people to run their operations, do their day-to-day work. So there's definitely a need for migration. But I think there's some other thing which has happened there, right? Which you know that a lot of the migration happened from North Africa, especially for Europe.
Correct.
And
Correct.
they were from a particular community going across, and they have a different
Yes.
cultural view. So they had a lot of cultural clashes and, some
I think
lot of
it's
incidents
going to
of
continue for
crime.
some more time because of the number of people who have gone there. Looks like it's going
Yes,
to
yes,
continue for
yes.
some more time. Yeah.
Exactly. And because of that, a negative view has come about immigration. They
Mm.
now feel that there are already too many foreigners here, and they're trying to change the culture of France or trying to change the culture of Germany and the
Correct.
way the
Correct.
Westerners think. Because obviously people coming with Islamist background, Islam background, and also
Different agendas.
conservative background, conservative background coming there would be quite discordant with the European values
Right.
of an
Right.
open, free, open society. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the other challenge in this, that if we are allowing migration, there has to be the government, like you said, policy. Government has to have I think the European nations have failed in doing that. And then when they
Mm-hmm.
were accepting the migration, which was a very nice thing for them to do, as per the UN
Yeah.
Convention, they were accepting refugees and so on. But they should have thought of a better way of, training these refugees, or sort of orienting these refugees to the country's
As per
values,
their requirement. Yeah. That's
hmm,
true.
hmm, hmm. And get their allegiance as well, that they stand behind that country and their values. Like if you're coming into France, then you have to believe France is the supreme entity there, and accept that
Right. Right.
your allegiance to France. Really, I mean that's what it boils
Mm-hmm.
down to. If they don't have that, and you allow them to come in, like we
Right.
are having some challenges with some of the Bangladeshi or Rohingyas coming in, right? I mean,
Correct.
and
Correct.
obviously, I think a lot of people are concerned whether these Bangladeshis would cause some crimes or some. It's not happened, fortunately, till now in a big way, but we are
Mm.
always worried that some crimes would start happening or something would happen, because these
Right.
people are just illegally getting in and they have no allegiance to India. So
Right.
they've just come in because there are better jobs or better career opportunities here.
Opportunity. When they get an opportunity, better opportunity, definitely they try to
Hmm.
get into the country where it is available. That's true. That's true. This discussion is such interesting. I mean, it just goes on, and I see the
Yes,
time. It's like
yes, yes. You already
8:20
right.
already, and fantastic the discussion, sir. This is,
Very,
thanks
very
for your
nice.
time.
You also asked
Uh,
some very nice questions to, take the
in fact,
discussion
I
forward and
wish I could have had this connected mobile connected, the video connected, and
yeah,
some it did not allow me. But anyway, I'll try to do it again now. Um, just for the closing statement, at least I will try to rejoin
okay,
on the
okay, sure, great for you.
right. And what advice do you like to give, sir, in case you want to give some advice or some suggestions to the entrepreneurs or business leaders who are going through this turbulent time or situations in the turbulent trade environment? What do you suggest they to do at this point of time?
I think they have to be very smart. Like for instance, when COVID happened, most of the
Mm.
businesses had problems, but then there
Very
were
good.
some smart enterprises who actually benefit by it, right? I mean, they quickly
Mm-hmm.
switch to, let's say you're a pharma company, you say everybody will buy sanitizers. This is the time to make sanitizers in a big way, or this is the
Right.
time to make all this this masks and all, and other
Mm-hmm.
such PPE equipment, for the personal protection equipment or whatever, PPE and other things. So they quickly
Right.
took advantage. So I think our entrepreneurs in India have to be very savvy about things and where these opportunities are coming, and should be able to pivot very quickly to what is possible and not be stuck in their way of working, because they have to seize the opportunity. Let's say now Bangladesh is closing down some factories. Then the buyer from the US or somebody, let's say it's a JC Penney or some big buyer or a Walmart, they would be wanting to suddenly source a huge number of shirts or dresses or whatever from India. But it's not so simple. We have to be ready to scale up, and we have to be ready to seize that opportunity, right? And if you're not, our entrepreneurs are not smart enough to do that quickly, then they will move to Vietnam for that matter, or such country. So I think it's very important for them to remain alert that this is a period of change, and to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming up by investing more in those areas, quickly ramping up, or importing it. Like for instance, one of the things is in the sticking to garments, we don't have this ability to make a lot of cotton. We are very strong, but we don't make a lot of this polyester related. There are so many varieties of polyester yarn and all that, which China and all are very strong in, and we are only somewhere middling in that area. So in those areas, we should be able to import the best of polyesters and best of material or accessories and all that, and then make the finished product as per the international standards, right? But if you are hesitant to make those deals and quickly get these stuff, then the quality will suffer. So I think it is a time to be very opportunistic, and also look at areas which will be troubled and cut down. So you may have to cut down some product lines which are directly hit by the tariffs and all that. So you have to do that and move into other product lines which are likely to benefit from this tariff war. So being very alert, strong environmental scanning, changing products and all would be very, very, very important. And also looking at new markets. So suppose US is getting hit and we have a capability in a particular area, then we need to be able to pivot, right? Let's say gems and jewelry, we are always strong, and polished diamonds. And now suppose US is putting all these barriers, then they should quickly be able to get into the European markets and try to not lose out on the export potential. So I think it's a time for the companies to be very alert and very smart in terms of their product lines, entering new markets. A very dynamic time, I would say. That's
dynamic situation at this point.
Dynamic situation, and
balance it in the right direction and take calculated risk and move forward.
Yes. You summed it well. Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much for the lovely input what you gave. I'll try to connect on the video now. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for your time. And it was fantastic. I really appreciate your time at this. And you gave this time in the evening.
Interesting topic and good inputs and
very, very interesting topic.
Nice to interact with you, Dr. Srini.
I'm going to call you back again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
And hopefully we can do something with the students, and
yes,
I would love to be taking some classes for international students. It'll be very interesting if that's possible.
Yeah, that would be.
Because to get them to know about emerging markets and so on, which we could take some sessions from India, telling them about opportunities in developing countries and how they can benefit from it. So those kind of areas, if there's an opportunity, I'd love to be associated with that.
Definitely, sir. There is opportunity because we are starting with the MBA in International Marketing and Brand Management. And I'm sure that we'll be working closely after this. I'll get in touch with you once taking forward.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Okay. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.